So I was born in Glendale, California, born to two wonderful parents who were devoted to their faith, to their family. My dad was a minister, and he was pastoring in Southern California. When I was 2 years old, he accepted a call, as we say in the ministry, to Puerto Rico, back to his homeland. My brother and I and our family returned to Puerto Rico, where I grew up. And of course, Puerto Rico being a place that it is, extraordinary place in the Caribbean, where the beauty and the family, and so that was the place that I grew up. My dad being the pastor, leader, being involved in many activities, somebody who was driven by a vision of advancing the mission of God in this world. And my mom was the oldest of 6 children, and so she came to live with my grandfather in Chicago, and at 16 years old she's worked in the factories to support her family. She thus postponed her own education. She did finish high school, but she postponed her education for many years. And it was not until her mid-40s that my mom returned to go back to college and to pursue her dreams of becoming a nurse. That decision and that example of a mother with a very busy schedule, being a wife of a pastor. At that time, my dad was a chaplain at a hospital, and yet she took the time and made the effort to go back to school and study nursing. That to me was an example of a person with persistence, with a dream. And when I think about our students here on campus, many of them who are single mothers, many of them are married, have many other things to occupy them. I reflect back on my mother and what she taught me about persistence, about pursuing your own dreams, about just sticking to it and being successful at the end of the day. And so Mom gave me an example of how you can make things happen and how you can put your effort and really achieve. Education in our home was very important. My grandmother, who lived to 103 years old, we would visit, and she would say to each of her grandchildren, what are you doing? How are you doing in school? She would always drill us. She believed that, education is the inheritance of the poor. One generation to another, from a fourth grade education grandmother to a whole generation of her sons and daughters. And so I grew up in that environment. And so my parents drove education hard, right? And so Christian education was really important. One of the most powerful memories that I have about my family life is that my dad, despite his busy schedule, took the time to be with my brother and I, and really gave us experiences that were memorable and life-shaping. So, for example, we didn't have a lot of resources at home, but he bought this 18-foot aluminum boat with a 25 horsepower engine. Of course, we were young. We had this homemade skis and really, pull us up with that aluminum boat and that motor behind, and us, I remember just, pushing forward and just holding on to the rope until we finally came up. And I have this wonderful picture of us 3 holding hands. And to me, that story, that picture says to me, here was somebody who took the time to give us an experience. So one of the best things that ever happened to me, it was meeting Maggie. We were both preachers' kids. We grew up in the west part of the island of Puerto Rico. Our parents, because they were ministers, we would get together, the families and so forth. And so I put my eyes on Maggie when I was actually very young. She lured me with her smile, with her happy disposition, and her family was just extraordinary family. When I was at Loma Linda University La Sierra campus, I took up a job as part of the painting crew on campus. Did that for 2 years. One day, at the end of my sophomore year, I run up to Dr. Richard Rice, who at the time was professor of theology, he said to me, "Edwin, would you be interested in being my reader?" I traded my paintbrush for his office. And it was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. I experienced in my own life the power of a mentor, of a coach, of a faculty, and who inspired me. And I think about that at ADU. How well do we inspire our young people? How well do we nurture their talents? How well do we believe that they can achieve great things? Because it happened to me, and I'm grateful for that. My mom was one of these people that is rich reservoir of social intelligence, right? She never had an enemy. She always loved everybody. And that capacity to care for others has been deeply influenced, in my life. My dad had that influence, and I sometimes look back and I wonder, I love my dad, and every day I think about him, his impact. I think about my mother, and I don't know how often I said to him, "Dad, thank you for what you did," and specifically really to highlight how the influence of a servant leader, the influence of somebody who sought the best in others, allowed me really to develop as a person of faith and as a professional. And that's why today I adopt and have thought about this notion of rising together as a key theme for my leadership. It's nested and grounded in this familial culture that of a mom and dad who achieved, who had faith, who believed in others, who served others, that used their talents to really create strong communities, strong institutions. And that legacy of a mother who became a nurse taught me that all things are possible. And so when an institution sets its mind on the future course, and when we dream big dreams, and when we think about our students, the students that have been entrusted to us by their families, what an amazing responsibility we have to ensure that through our influence, through our challenging them, through our loving them, through our giving them the skills, we can see them rise and achieve their dreams as we work together to make that happen.